into YouTube, I will drop the link onto the various chats as well. Okay, I'm dropping the link for YouTube in there in the chat, and then for the Microsoft Teams, dropping the YouTube link in there as well. I hate Teams. Can I just say that? All right, that just took me 20 seconds to get the little chat thing to appear. All right, that's the YouTube, and let me re-grab. Actually, I'll grab it up here. And there's the topics of coolness. All right, Russ and others on Teams. Okay, let me see. Real quick on the chat. Thank you, Tyler. You know, it's like I'm functional, but it's just, I don't know. I mean, I have like an ear, I don't know, ear infection. I don't know. And I think that I'm, I think I'm in my other class. I don't think I'm going to go to campus today. Um, I think we're in a abundance of caution in our little COVID world that we live in. Um, okay, Cassidy, 3 days till fall break. Yeah, today really should be. Why can't it be Thursday? I'm right with you. James, I'm feeling pretty burned out as well. Also done Foxhound. I'm ready to be done with school. Yes, yeah, man, me too. Um, yeah, Kelsey, I hope you're doing okay. Getting sick. Alex playing. Yeah, I think we're all I think we're all in it. So I'm just, I don't know if it's any consolation, but I professors feel the same way. At least I do. We're not like just, life slaps us around as well. So let's talk about topics. So Austin. Oh, what was the name of the book that I was describing that if my wife asked me for 15 minutes, that it would cost me an hour? The book is called Peopleware. Peopleware, all one word. And in fact, if you scan up in the chat here just a little ways, I'll, there we go. Um, Let me drop it back down. There's yeah, that's the link on Amazon anyway, if you'd like to buy it there. But at least to learn about it. Um, it's really it's a tremendous book, really valuable book. Okay, so topics. So I hope everybody enjoyed not having this class last week. uh, I know I did. I was on the road, but oh, thanks, Anthony. Quarter of the way through it, yeah. It's one that I try to reread about once every 10 years. I've read it front to back 3 times, and I'm probably about due again. I first bumped into it when I think I was 28 when I first just stumbled on Peopleware and in a bookstore and bought it. just because it looked so good, looked so interesting, and just became a big fan of Tom DeMarco and Tim Lister. Okay, what topics do you want to hit today? We got about 37 minutes. We can do whatever you want to do. Um, I don't know if we talked about. Let me talk. Let me hit a couple of these up top, barring other opinions. Um, let's see. Did we finish talking about? Did we finish this one about the portfolio that's highlighted? Who is that? Anonymous Ibex. Um, because I can hit some of these probably and wrap some of these up and then promote some of these other topics. But if you feel like you want them to come up, drop them up here. Um, let's go. Okay, I'm just gonna put. Oops, what is that? Huh. Yeah. Okay. Um, and this is, this is sort of a wide open democracy. Okay. So if you have any I'm on the Google Doc right now. Um, is everybody there? Are we live? Is everybody awake? Okay, let's talk about um all right. Somewhat alive. Thank you, Faulted Path. Let me talk about negotiating salary and benefits. Did we talk much about this at all? Maybe hit it a little. Did we hit it a little? But I don't think we hit it a ton. Okay. Um, yeah, here's my take on negotiating salary. The first principle of negotiating, and by the way, I got Anonymous Skunk has got the whole thing highlighted. If you could, whoever Anonymous Skunk is, um, unhighlight that might be nice. Uh, how to negotiate salary and benefits. The first principle, so Dr. K's principles of salary and benefits. First principle is to recognize that it is reasonable to negotiate salary and benefits. If there's a lot of people that they're like, I have an offer, but I don't know what to do. It's not, is it okay? Am I even okay? It's one thing to say, how do I negotiate salary and benefits? It's another thing to say, should I even negotiate salary and benefits? Um, is that even something I can do? And the answer is yes. The answer is an emphatic yes. A company that is going to be weirded out by the fact that you're going to negotiate is probably not a company you want to be working for, or at least it's going to be indicative of a number of other problems that are going to be systemic. If they're like, and if there are companies like, we don't negotiate, wow, that's quite the business philosophy. you know I mean, hope that works out for you. It probably won't. So number one, just recognize that it's totally legitimate. Um, and okay, Tyler, let's come back to this, the Dr. K theory on comparing salary to your coworkers, because if you could clarify more what you mean by that, Tyler, that'll help me, because I'm not 100% sure exactly what you mean by that, and I want to know what it is. But one of the things that I think I maybe touched on, hinted on, when you go to a new company, what you've been making is, in my opinion, in the opinion of one Dr. K, is in fact a relevant piece of information because the value, your value to the company is not some abstract, objective, universal truth that can be known. It's very subjective. It's all very subjective. And so, as a byproduct, um, knowing, for example, what you're currently making at your current job, or that you have another offer at a certain value, it's a way that the market is validating your value. If you're working someplace at like 40,000 a year, and then some other company wants to know how much you make, and you tell them I'm currently making 40, then they're going to realize that they can pay you 50 or 60. Um, and you're going to be happy and they're going to get a bargain. But if you think you're going to jump from 40 to 80 or from 40 to 120 in one bump, you're probably mistaken. Um, there's a reason why people are, there are people in our field making 40K, and it's a combination of the companies and the individuals. And there's a reason why people are making 100K. And assessing that in some objective way is nearly impossible. Like, I'm this good, I'm this valuable. Well, says who? You know, I mean, how do you determine that? That's the difficulty. But anyway, um, but you should be able to have an open relationship where you can talk about salary, and the best way to do it is to, again, Dr. K's theory of any negotiation is start by seeing it and understanding it from the perspective of the other person. It's an empathetic starting point. Okay. Um, Understand that when you go to work at a company, the company is trying to uh, bring people on at the cheapest level that they can while keeping people happy. That's the tension. I mean, if I had my way, I'd hire all of you and pay everybody $500,000 a year, but we never make payroll. So we're all just dead. So what's the point? You know, um, if the pay is too low, then you're going to lose people. If the pay is too high, you're going to bankrupt the company. So you're always trying to find this middle ground. Just understand that. Um, my opinion, that's probably the most important aspect, is just to understand that give and take. That the the average company that's going to be hiring you when you finish your degrees are somewhere in a growth phase, startup to growth phase. There's very few that are big behemoths, like, say, an Adobe, but there are very few, employers like that. There are far more companies that are in their growth phase. Well, when a company's in the growth phase, they can't be exorbitant with salaries, but they may, have some other incentive um, to throw at you, you know. Um, anyway, that's not a really, I don't know how thorough that is on how to negotiate salary and benefits. Um, Let me pivot to Tyler's. You guys are like largely quiet today. It's a little more quiet. I think we're all a little tired. But I'm just hitting the chats. Tyler said a lot of companies frown on you asking coworkers what they make. It's my understanding that this is the company's way of mitigating employee unrest of, well, why does employee A make more than I do when I do more than they do, etc. Right, fair. I think it isn't unreasonable to see where your salary is compared to your coworkers, especially if you're being paid, say, $20 while all your coworkers make 35. Yeah, I agree. Tying into negotiating salary, you weren't prepared to negotiate, so they super lowballed you at $20. Yeah, no, that's a really good That's a really good question, Tyler. From an employer's perspective, the reason that you would frown on it is because it does make it really difficult. Because if I've got somebody, let's just say I'm bringing, ignore the $20 an hour, which is not a reasonable salary for a post degree, you know, that's a way too low. But if I've got somebody who's currently working somewhere at 60,000 and I bring them over at 65 and they're happy, you understand that salaries and compensation is the science of trying to keep someone content. And also, if everybody just starts off highball, then um, you got no place to go. I've had people where I brought them in really, really high because I needed to get them. And then it was like, then they get like a 6% raise and they're like, this is the lowest raise I've ever gotten. Well, right. It's also, as a percentage, it's also the highest dollar amount raise you've ever gotten in terms of absolute dollars because your starting salary is now so high. You have to understand that these dynamics are changing, you know, um, and you're trying to manage somebody in this run, and there's a point where they're just making a lot of money. Can your company grow and keep up? It's just difficult. So I understand really both perspectives. Um, when I've been an employer, I have been content to not have people talk about their salaries. Another thing too is let's just say you got this one guy at 80K and another guy's at 60K. The guy at 80K, maybe there was some reason why you needed to get that guy for some, and it's not obvious to you. So in other words, you might look and say, well, I do as much as so and so. Well, that's not the only metric. I'm more valuable than so and so. Based on what metric? You don't really know what, particular thing, you know what I'm trying to say? Or your buddy is over there and you're like, well, that guy is worthless, but maybe they made him an offer because what they really wanted was his wife. She was the one they were really needing to recruit. She was the talent pool, right? And in other words, the reasons why somebody is working at your company and making X amount of salary or whatever, the reasons for that, you don't really know all of the reasons. And so just beware, the overly simplistic analysis that says somehow you perceive that you're better than person X, but they make more money than you. There's a lot of potential reasons why. And just understand, I'm not saying that therefore you're not right, because you might be right. I'm just saying check yourself, check your, I think that we sometimes get into especially in CS, we get this kind of binary um, thinking, about the world because base two, and then the real world is a lot more nuanced than that. Just keep that in mind. Um, I is what I would say. I don't know if that helps, Tyler. That's kind of my right. So no, Cassidy made the point, right, that you might do more work than somebody else, but but she did one. Let's just say uh, there's this lady, and she, it doesn't look to you like she's working overtime like you are, but what she does in those 40 hours maybe is just changing everything. You know, um, so. That's a really good point, Cassidy. That what is who's actually making the company money? Who's revolutionizing what the company's doing? I've had some of my best people. I've known people who were like, you know, your people need to work more hours, and I'm like, and they've got a particular guy, and I'm like, well, I got a guy who works 40, just 40. That's all. A couple guys that just only worked 40, and they were changing the world in their 40. So what do I need to burn them out to Why this doesn't make any sense to me that they have to somehow that working more hours is the measure of your value. I don't think so. So Riley, so Cassidy, I think it was a great point. Um, Riley, when I worked at Oracle, I had a manager scold me in front of the office. Okay, first of all, scolding in front of the office is never appropriate for discussing salaries with others. I went and found HR docs that explicitly say that employees can share salary, but managers cannot. Sent it to him, and he replied with an apology. Nice, nice. I'm not sure I've ever felt that level of satisfaction since. No, so right. So that's a great story. That's really interesting. Well, and also I think it's great that the manager apologized. I think it's great that the manager was willing to see that, understand it. Foxhound, is it okay to list more than 5 bullet points? Technically, no. It should be 5 and only 5. I don't know if are you getting dinged? So Foxhound, um, are you getting dinged on the grading for having more than 5? Um, Let me see, and I'll come back to that. Um, yeah, I'd keep it to 5. More than I think it's great if you are excited enough about stuff we're talking about. I don't know if we skipped assignment 6 or not. I think we did. Did we? Did we say we were just skipping it? I think we did. Everyone just gets credit for a 6. Okay. Thanks, Michael. All right. Thank you. And this is one of those moments where if everybody says you said skip, then I'm not going to remember any better. So yeah, so that's right. So we'll make that work, Cassidy. I like no class this week works. Um, Garrett, always understood salary negotiation is sorry, I can't talk. Negotiation as understanding what a company needs, understanding how you contribute to that need and how much that contribution is worth. I like that. I like that at some level. I think it's flawed to consider how much am I worth. Right. It doesn't matter how much you're worth in general. It matters what you're worth to the company you're talking to. Right. It's a little bit like what is my house worth? I'm trying to sell my house, let's say. What is my house worth? Easy answer, right? You know what your house is worth. And I don't mean emotionally, I don't mean nostalgically. I just mean market dollars, right? What's anybody want to just jump in? What's your house worth when you're going to go sell it? Whatever the market will pay. What some individual will pay you for it. Yeah, you rent whatever, Jack. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say. If you have an item for sale, your item is worth economically to the market whatever the market will give you for it. Now it might be worth, so much. This Sharpie is so important to me. I can't let it go for anything less than $30. But no one in their right mind is going to pay you $30 for this Sharpie. Guess what? You're going to keep your Sharpie. You're going to keep it. So, and if what the your house is not worth what you put into it, it's not even worth what it appraises for. It's worth the dollars that somebody will give you for it. So what is your value to the market as a developer? It is worth whatever the market will give you for it. Meaning what a company will actually pay you. That's bottom line. What will a company pay you? Um, and then it's up to you to try to figure out how to sell that, to the company, how to persuade them. There's only one reason why the company exists. By the way, this is one of those, we run the risk of getting into, politics, um, which is more of a 305G kind of a topic. But Um, there's only one reason that a company exists, and you can like this or not, but it's to make money for the shareholders, which are the owners. In other words, if me and Cassidy and Garrett started a company together, just we go one third each, right? And then we decided, so me and Cassidy and Garrett started a company, and we decided that we wanted to figure out whether we should hire Riley. Okay. There's only one reason why we would hire Riley, and it is because our company, the Cassidy, Garrett, and Chuck Incorporated, is going to make more money because we paid a salary to Riley. Okay. Now, there are other companies that exist, nonprofit corporations who exist to do a certain good in the world, and therefore they're tax exempt. They have a certain status, and they can still make money and they can still pay salaries and things like that, but they don't. The equity in a nonprofit corporation is sort of the public good. There's no shareholders in a nonprofit. Okay, the community is deemed to be the shareholders of a nonprofit corporation. So anyway, so there's only one reason, Riley, that we're going to hire you is because if we pay Riley, Riley's making us money. And then if we understand how that works, we're going to turn around and we're going to hire Tyler because, again, we're going to make even more money if we hire Tyler. Okay. So the notion that we exist, to support our employees, no, that supporting the employees is a byproduct of the fact that we're trying to make money. And I'm trying to make it personal by going, I'm just picking on, me and Garrett and Cassidy, because I'm trying to say these are people we know that we formed this company because the three of us wanted to do a thing. And if we make money, we get to keep doing it. And if we don't, we have to stop. So the only way to keep playing the game, to get a free game, is to make money so we can pay the salary so we can continue to do it. Okay. So when you're negotiating, just understand that your company is trying to make money. And your value to them is that by you being hired, you generate more money. That becomes your value. So I think that Garrett said it really, really well. Um, okay, let me hit, and I'm going to get to Danny's question. So Danny asked different questions. Sounds like I've been speaking of me, but I've been on the employer side a lot. What were the most convincing arguments you got for giving someone a raise? Man, that's a good question. Um, and the truth is, I've been on both sides. I've been a lot on both sides over my life. There are some jobs, like being a university professor, where you're really not in it for the money. Um, so any little cost of living raise is like, oh, oh, that's nice, but it's not like you're doing it for the money in the first place. I would say, let me see, what are the most convincing arguments I got for giving someone a raise? I would say the most compelling argument is, um, well, there's a couple of ways. If I perceive the value of the individual, then an individual telling me what somebody else will pay him is potentially compelling. Um, if, on the other hand, um, one of the best, honestly, one of the best things, the person didn't even have to tell me. It wasn't like they told me something. I just looked at that individual and I said, well, there's somebody I really don't want to lose because they are worth X amount to me, or X amount to our company, right? Um, that's the bottom line. You realize that, like, if you've got somebody that's, some of the things that I do, I have a consulting company, right? Which I think I've told you about. My consulting company, we do a certain amount of consulting work that's billed out by the hour, right? And if I've got somebody that is, approaching graduation, for example, as a hypothetical, and their billable is more than paying for a regular full-time salary right now while they're part-time, and the customers are happy and satisfied. That's very easy to make them an offer at a competitive rate because you already know that their work is worth a certain amount to the market. It's easy, like why wouldn't I do that? Um, Also, can I just say one other thing? I made the comment that, number one, Romney was right. Companies are people. That's 100% true, in my opinion. Um, because you're either founders, workers, owners. There is a notion of having an ownership in whatever the thing is, and the reason you have that ownership is in order to try to make some money. Um, so companies are people, and companies do exist to make money. That's why you run the risk. That's why you put your own equity in. That's why you bust your ass, 80 hours a week for a year or two to get it off the ground so that you can profit. That's why you do it. Again, gospel according to Dr. K. But I also think that there's a false notion that gets tossed around. I mean, there's certain people that I follow or see or whatever on LinkedIn, probably the most egregious offender in this category, where the description of capitalism looks a lot like the description of the capitalists in 1984. Okay. In other words, it's an exaggerated caricature of blood-sucking vipers who are squeezing every last dime from the poor, oppressed working class. And there are people like that, but in a market that's healthy, in an economy that's healthy, there's opportunities to go somewhere else. And in a market like ours, there is an abundance of places to go, other places to go. And anybody who actually treats their people like that in this industry is either already dead or soon will be. It's bad. That's bad capitalism. Great capitalism, when you understand that everybody's creative work is a byproduct of their emotional investment, okay? That's critical. And Peopleware will talk about this, by the way, coming back to Peopleware. You can't create without bandwidth to invest emotionally. Okay? Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So if you're doing boneheaded doofus moves, you know, and you're just this horrible person, you're going to hemorrhage people for starters. They're going to be leaving you, and then your company's going to burn all the pain and effort um, of replacing you. Okay, that's also, by the way, back to Garrett's question or whoever asked the question, Danny. Um, when I'm looking at whether I want to lose somebody, I also have to look at the probability. What's the cost of replacing that person? You know, they're going to be worthless for 2 weeks. Then I'm going to hire somebody else. They're going to be worthless for a while. Then I don't know if at the end they're going to be any better than what I've got right now. So it's tough. Um, anyway, good capitalism is to treat your people really, really well, as generously as you possibly can, while still making margin for the company, which allows you to pay for the sandbox so everybody can keep playing in the sandbox. You got to pay for the sandbox or you don't get to play. That's just the way it is. Um, all right, let me scan just a little bit more. Tyler, how much can we calculate what salary we should be aiming for when applying or negotiating salary? How can we calculate the salary we should be aiming for? I don't know. I really don't know, Tyler. If you have a sense from friends of a certain value and understand that startup companies can pay you less, but they can incentivize you. Big companies can pay you more, but you're going to have less equity. What do you want? What do you prefer? Becomes a really important question. Um, we talked a little bit about the fact that companies are at different stages in their life cycle, and you got to figure out what's the stage where enjoy the most. Maybe you really love the startup phase. Maybe you love the growth phase. Maybe you love the mature phase. You want to go to work for Microsoft, go to work for Apple. Go to work for you know whatever, Adobe. Um, okay, so Riley said technically your house has a market price, but if multiple people are interested, they may bid it above the market price. Right. And what I would say, Riley, is that the ultimate price that it is sold for is in fact the market value. There's no such thing as an objective market value and then a bidding war that goes above it. The bidding war by definition reveals the bidding war itself reveals the actual market value, which was higher than the price. The asking. That's why we call that an asking price, not a market price. We talk about market value, which we're always guessing at. Um, Alex said, I've seen companies that exist to give jobs to family members, um, and they rarely do well. Yeah. And yeah, nepotism rarely exists to make more money, Riley. Yep. Agreed. Let me see. Have you seen an employee screw things up by negotiating poorly? Let me just see this real quick. Um, so let me see. This is Braden. When I negotiated my first salary, I asked for a reasonable increase from what they were offering. They were offering the absolute low end of the position's posted salary range, and I knew I offered more value than that. I think they thought I was too young. I was 23 at the time. That's not too young to know better, and they knew this was my first full-time position. Oh, I see what you're saying. So I think they expected me to not negotiate. My wife was worried that countering might mess things up. I figured, what do I have to lose? They gladly accepted my counter. Percentage wise, it wasn't huge, but dollar wise, it was thousands. So glad I countered. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, so I'm right with you, Braden. It also depends on how you do it, your personality when you do it. If you're like, if you're really abrasive, if you're caustic, if you're also suggesting to them what you'll be like as an employee. And if you negotiate well, what would be an example? Start with, I really appreciate the offer and the confidence that reflects, that you have in me, and I really, really appreciate it. And even saying something like, "Are you comfortable talking about the salary?" There's ways of easing into it. Yeah, glad to entertain. A good company is going to go, yeah, I'd be glad to entertain. Where are you at? What are your issues? Well, um, uh, sorry, I just got a notification that just zipped by. Um, but if you're just like, well, I appreciate the offer, but this salary is just not going to work. They're going to be like, ooh, caustic personality, maybe. And in that situation, I might actually say, yeah, well, we're not in a position to go to negotiate, but it might be very personal if I perceive that the individual's approach to the negotiation is really caustic. But if it's done well, it gives me confidence like, oh, this person's really reasonable to work with, you know, and this is a harbinger of things to come, right? Word of the day, harbinger. How about that? It'll also stretch your vocabulary. Thank you for the reminder, 4x4. Have we set the word of the day? We always forget till the bitter end. Harbinger. Okay. All right. Thank you for the, I really thank you for the reminder. Um, Now, by the way, sometimes I just want to say, so Foxhound said to Braden, you're a brave man. Yeah, yeah, agree. I mean, I think but I think it's an appropriate kind of bravery, and you don't have a whole lot to lose in this market. In this market, there's so much opportunity for good people. Um, there have been situations where because I wanted to do a certain thing and it wasn't for the money, that whatever they offered, I was just going to be fine with it. But on the other hand, even some of those, yeah, no, it all depends. If I'm, put it this way, if I'm content with my current salary and like when I left industry and went to academia, which was in 1999, when I took a position at Oregon State for a year and then bounced to BYU, I took a 40% pay cut to be a professor. Why would I do that? Well, because there's more to jobs than strictly money, right? Um, Cassidy, if my employees don't bleed, what does this even mean, Cassidy? I don't know what that means. You're gonna, Cassidy, would you clarify if my employees don't bleed for their code? Or was there a typo in there that messed something up? Are you saying that there are certain caustic employers? Maybe that's what you're saying. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get rid of that top list. Let's talk about this next time. Oh man, that's such a big one. I'm promoting this one all the way to the top. Okay. How to deal with burnout and being overly stressed out from work and school. How to refine the love for programming and not just doing the grind. Wow. Okay. Now, thanks, Cassidy, for the clarification. Um, so Braden, oh, here's another example. Last story, because we're out of time. I was working at Novell. I was doing okay. Stock options were the big thing at Novell, and back in those days, there were $2 billion companies in the valley, only two, and they were Novell and WordPerfect. And I remember a buddy of mine that I'd been an undergrad with called me, literally called me, and he was working at WordPerfect, and I was at Novell, and he said um, he wanted me to come to WordPerfect, and he literally said, "Whatever you're making, I can double your salary." And I was like, "Wow." First of all, my salary was already mostly being doubled because of stock options. But I remember just thinking that what I really, really didn't want to do, just productivity wise, career wise, engineering wise, was build word processors. And I really enjoyed what I was doing. Novell was killing it, loved what I was doing. And, but this is a guy that knew me because we'd been undergrads together. We'd studied, we knew each other, which is another important thing, networking together now while you're undergrads. Okay, let's wrap up. We're done. I'm going to start shutting everything down. Stay safe, stay well, stay healthy. It's good to visit. Hopefully, this is a low pain little interlude of your week for your little 496R. Okay, all right. I will see you next Monday.